recording.
I think we're good to go.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. Well, it's the end of the week. I suppose it's Friday.
Yeah, we keep talking about doing the show earlier through the week, and it just does not happen. We get so dang busy.
No, I know, which is a good thing. None of us do well when we're bored, and busy hopefully means profitable. So we'll take it.
We will definitely take it. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to Motivate University here. Motivate You. The podcast is designed to help you take your business and your practice to the next level. Really just kind of talking about what's going on in the industry on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. But we're here to discuss how to better serve your clients, how to better serve you and your family.
How to grow your practice, maybe simplify, strategize, a little bit of everything, really.
Strategize.
Yes.
Sounds like a transformer.
It would be a good.
We should play a game today.
Okay. This makes me nervous.
It should. What swear word will sneak out of your mouth by accident today? Because we're on a pretty good run. Like the last couple ones, we've had some really good flubs come out of your mouth.
Well, they're not intentional. Well, I think I have said a few intentional swear words, which unfortunately happens. I do have the mouth of a trucker. So it's actually a lot better when they're on the podcast, but somehow subconsciously they still make their way out.
I want you to pretend that we're hanging out with your grandma. You ever have that where you swear like crazy and then you go to see your grandmother and you're just like,
oh yeah.
For some reason, it's like you've never even said that
My
word.
grandma would flip out if I wore dangly earrings and forget having like flashy nail polish. That was a big no-no. Probably why I went the total other direction.
Yeah. Well, you're not wearing flashy. Are you wearing dangly earrings right now? I can't see with your headphones
I am
on.
a little.
Those are dangly.
They're
yes.
dangly. But
no, you're not wearing flashy nail polish. So
no. My toes are blue. My toenails are blue.
Circulation. I think that's poor circulation. You might want to go to the doctor and get that checked.
Is blue.
Okay.
So I suppose I keep it contained.
But yeah, so far you've said relationships, which is one of my favorites. You meant relationships. And then you said instantaneous instead of instantaneous.
Welcome to Motivate You, where we educate you on words not to say.
Well, I think we're letting you know we're shooting these podcasts live. So things will come out. We like to keep it fun. And hey, if it keeps you coming back to listen to what we're talking about, then let's go for it.
Well, I hope everyone knows we are never generic and quite sporadic. We always know what we're going to talk about in our subject, but it's just kind of the interaction, which is you and I on a daily basis, that goes awry.
Yeah, there's a lot of slamming back and forth. But we were talking about words and how oftentimes words can be misused.
Yes.
Look at that lead in.
Oh, that was actually really good.
Right? It's almost like I've done this 5 other times. But yeah, no, we're talking about words. One thing that's really interesting in our industry, and we see a major, well, I always talk about the risk, right? The risk is shifted from that of the employer to the employee. I always talk about, when my grandfather retired, he had Social Security, he had a pension, he had enough money set aside for 4 or 5 years worth of bait and tackle because that was life expectancy at the time. And so retirement planning wasn't as important, in my opinion, as it is today.
Or as involved and in depth either.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at half the population right now, more than half the population technically does not have access to a pension. Right. And most people are realizing now how Social Security is going to probably come up short for supplying them the type of lifestyle that they want.
And even the pensions that people do have right now, we know it's not guaranteed either. Unfortunately, we've run into clients that thought they were going to have $1 million when they retire, and that is not the case.
Yeah, we've seen pilots do that. We've seen people work for Fortune 500 companies that have had those issues, and we've seen pensions kind of hit the floor and not work out the way they thought it was going to work. But that's what's important to realize from that and to gain from this is that the risk has shifted so much to the employee now versus the employer. And there's a lot of common misconceptions out there. And I think when I look around, Cassie, and we talk to advisors who are saying, man, I'm doing some things right. I'm doing my direct mail pieces, or I'm doing my Instagram, or I'm doing my Facebook ads, or I'm sending out blogs, or I'm doing all these different things. What I think happens a lot of times is that advisors are using phrases and common use phrases wrong.
Yeah.
Or the client doesn't understand them wrong. And so the content,
or they don't understand them.
Maybe the advisor might not either, right? But the content happens. And I'll tell you some of the histories that I've seen historical of these misused words. And we've seen these a lot. And so I think it's important when you're putting together your content of what you're going to discuss, and you're the queen on this thing. You can run this show all day long when it comes down to content. Content makes or breaks your whole life when it comes to marketing. Fair?
100%. You can spend a ton of money on ads. You can get in front of people. You can have the best SEO if you do not have the correct content. And it's not even a matter of good, it's how it's written. Where is it being used across the board? Any marketing medium, you need to change your content to fit that medium. It's not, you don't, the same thing that you put in an email is not what you put on Facebook or on a blog or a podcast.
Sure.
Every single time it changes.
Well, and it's going to change as the years go by. It's going to change depending upon what the people are looking for. You know, I saw an interesting post. I cannot remember the woman's name, but she was really brilliant on LinkedIn. And she was talking about how empathy is such an important aspect that's being missed in the financial planning marketing world.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it's like, you need to diversify, or you need to do this, you do this. And it's not talking about the emotion behind money. Because let's be honest, money is emotional.
Yeah, very.
So what I want to do is kind of go through some of the most common misused words that we see in this industry. And I'm going to end with the last one, which I think is the big one.
The Whopper.
The F word.
Ooh, it's not even me dropping a bad one now.
But this one's not a swear word unless you use it wrong. But it does begin with an F. But you know, there's a lot of different words. Diversification is a common one.
Yes.
So I remember one time when I first got in this industry, a husband and wife came in and we were going through a downturn at the market. And I said to them, how do you feel about your current investment strategies? They said, we're great. We're really, really, really excited. And I've told you that story plenty of times. And I said, well, what do you like so much about your current situation? They said, Mike, it's awesome because the advisor that we have has completely diversified us.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what does that mean to you? And they said, well, it just means we have so many different things. And, you know, honestly, I took it for a fact. I took that for truth.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my.
And that they understood what things are.
Well, and I didn't even understand it either to a certain extent when I first got in this industry. They had like 110 different stocks, somewhere in that range. So I go home that night and I basically have an hour drive and I go home and I start putting together their review of their analysis of their portfolio. And what I quickly realized is that the term diversification was being misused. And it's diversification in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But this was my first like insight to it, if you will, where I realized, yes, they had 110 stocks, but 95% of those stocks were in the financial services sector.
In one sector. Right.
One area.
And all they see is 100 different, tickers. So they're like, oh, it's spread across the board. We're good to go.
Mm-hmm. And anyone who was in the business between 2007, 2008 knows that was probably not the diversification they thought they had.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so going and sitting down with them, they didn't understand what diversification was, really.
Truly.
They didn't understand that diversification doesn't necessarily eliminate risk. It also it spreads it around to different places.
Mm-hmm.
If you pour a glass of water on a table, you didn't eliminate the water, you just spread it out, right? You spread out the diversification, spread out the risk, that type of scenario. But then as time went on and we kept continuing to building this company, we looked at diversification in a completely different fashion, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one of the big ones you talk about all the time is tax.
Right. Yeah. Tax diversification. And yeah, I mean, it's, I think so much. And that's a good, kind of interest into content too. If you're discussing diversification, realize that people can read that word in a bunch of different ways, unless you're explaining or expanding upon what are you discussing within that. Yep. We all know you need to be tax diversified. So what is taxable, what's tax-free, and what is tax deferred at some point, and are you using those different buckets?
So one power play here, then theoretically, and it's kind of what I'm getting from you, is that if you're using the word diversification, it's not that we should say that don't use that word, but maybe you can utilize that word as a differentiating value, comparatively speaking, to the other people in your area.
Right.
Right. Maybe it's a situation where you say diversification may not be all you thought it was, or diversification. Did you know that there's diversification with your investments? We all know that that's a play, but how about diversification within your tax code? Mm-hmm. Right. So understanding that particular word and how that impacts people is really important. And that's one thing that we do within the Motivate world is, when we're talking about diversification, we're not just talking about diversification for your stocks, your bonds. We're looking at the 8 elements of financial control. Yeah. We're making sure that your money has a job. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the processes that we teach that's been so powerful and such a big deal for people to take their clients and put their clients in a position of feeling much more proactive versus reactive. Mm-hmm. That's a big way we go about it. We look at income, we look at liquidity, we look at what ifs and stress tests, we look at growth, we look at inheritance while you're alive, or legacy strategies while you're alive to increase that vibe. We're looking at protection, defense, legacy defense. We're looking at how to pass it on, and we're looking at the tax ramifications of that. Yeah. It doesn't get much more holistic than that. but that's diversification even in the planning process.
Right. Well, and even within each of those steps, we're discussing diversification. So you need to have that within your insurance as well. Obviously, you don't want all of your safe money just in an annuity. Do you need life insurance as well? You know, making sure that your jobs within the, or your money within the insurance side has their own particular jobs as well. Then obviously within a portfolio. But when we look at the word portfolio as the whole entire financial plan, that needs to be diversified as well. So really it can be used in every single bucket, every single strategy that you're discussing as you're going through with a client.
As long as your business model fits that. So that's part of the other problem with diversification. I've been talking to people left and right about, working with Motivate. They've been calling in. We've been having Zoom meetings, great meetings. And it's amazing to me how much money all of you are leaving on the table for your business and how much help you're leaving on the table for your clients, because you're working with a company or within your own company
or within one strategy that
just took the words right out of my mind,
or
right out of my mouth. It's exactly it. If you're working with only one strategy, the limitations that you're not only placing on your clients and expecting your clients to have to go out and figure out the rest of it somewhere else,
or go to Joe Schmo down the block who has no idea what you're doing for them.
Right. So, I mean, how many of you will go to 3 or 4 different doctors without having the doctors know what type of medication you're on? So when you're looking at diversification, one thing I want you to look into, advisors out there listening, is how do you better diversify your own practice? Because that's only going to have a positive impact on everybody involved, whether it's you or your clients and or all the above.
Right.
It's going to provide much more of a holistic feel to that planning process, and it's going to make it much more complete. Right. You may not, what's your saying that you always say? May not have it done, but or maybe it's good, but it's not complete.
Do I make that face while you're saying it as well?
But what do you say?
I don't know. It may be working, but maybe it's incomplete.
Yeah,
I don't know. And you make
fun
of me.
It was actually worse that time. But no, I mean, it's an important thing. So
it is. Well, and you're leaving money on the table as well. I mean, it's so two-sided, within Motivate, our main goal is to ensure that our advisors are doing the right thing for their clients. That's why we have contracts with every single A plus, B carrier. We have these different strategies because everybody's different. We know they are. So we want to be able to support our advisors that they're doing the best thing for their clients. And if you're only selling one product, if you're only using one carrier, if you only have just the investments or just the insurance, are you really being a fiduciary? Are you doing what is best for them? Just keep going with it.
You took my word.
I was setting you up. I'm not taking your word.
But it's not to the last one. That's
the F.
So anyway, diversification is a big deal. Bottom line is, if you want to help with your clients, and keep in mind, this is what your clients are looking for today.
Yes.
Okay. I'm telling you, if you get nothing else out of this podcast today, understand your clients are looking for someone who can help them in its entirety. They're not looking for one trick ponies anymore. They're past that. That's why they're in your office in the first place, is they've been sold stuff as time has gone on. They've created their own financial junk drawer between this 401k with this company and this 401k with this company and this term life policy from a family member and this term policy over here and maybe a whole life policy they bought back in 1974. And they have this huge financial junk drawer of stuff. They don't really know what it does. And if you're only going to be able to help them with part of it, it's a very, very frustrating thing for people. It's already overwhelming. So make this a little bit more engaging and a little bit easier for people to come in and look at that diversification.
Yeah.
What was the next one that we're going to talk about as far as misused words? Averages?
Averages. Yes. The flaw of averages.
There is a flaw of averages.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big thing as well. What we found in this industry is that people tend to not brag about their crappy years.
No, of course not. That doesn't benefit anyone.
Right. You don't see
Although
a lot
it really could if you're using it right.
Well, exactly. If you're good during the bad years, that's when we earn our stripes, right?
Yep.
So, when you look at the flaw of averages, I think it's really important for people to understand that averages does not mean what they think it does. And you guys get this, you're financial advisors, but I think it's very important to explain to your clients that oftentimes when people are using averages for returns, it's because of the fact that they're only going to show you the good ones.
Right.
Because if you have $100,000, it loses 50%. We would all agree it's down to 50,000. It can then earn 50%. Now it's at 75,000, and you actually technically have a 25% loss, but your average return is still 0.
Yep.
And that sneaky little thing that people talk about, the flaw of averages, oftentimes the clients don't understand that. Okay. This is a great way for you to build the credibility and show them something different by having that conversation saying, look, it's about annualized returns. It's about what you keep, not just what you make. It's about understanding the flaw of average. All those things that kind of go along with it is going to make them feel much, much better, because for some reason they can't understand why when it's an average that they still have less in their pocket.
Well, because that's what they have been sold on. That's what they've been advertised to. So those individuals that are advertising themselves just by talking about these averages that they're getting, and they're not using the whole truth. It's almost been ingrained in an individual's head that this is how it works. And that's not true. So you're almost disrupting the old way of talking about it a little bit. But in all actuality, it's the real version. It's the true version.
Yeah, we see this all the time. I like to see what the overall net investment was, what the current rate, current value is now, and look at those numbers. I like annualized rates of return. I like to be able to have those conversations, but really what you're able to do by going through that is you're able to build the credibility and have a different conversation that they probably haven't had in the past.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Because they've just been sold something. Someone actually hasn't sat down to educate them and say, this is what you have. This is really, really how it's working. Good, bad, and ugly.
Well, we always talk about what do you have? How does it work? And how does different situations in life affect you?
Yep. And they need to know all of those.
Absolutely. My third one.
Tell me.
4% rule.
Oh, yeah.
So we've heard the 4% rule a lot. I actually just saw someone the other day on TikTok, believe it or not, talking about the 4% rule and its importance within financial planning.
In following suit with it or disrupting it a little bit?
Nope. They love the 4% rule. They think it's fantastic. So one thing to keep in mind with the 4% rule is just like everything else around us evolves, so do some of those recommendations. I'm not going to call it a 4% rule. I don't like what's a rule. It's a recommendation, right? Just like the rule of 100. It's not a real rule, because if you look at the rule of 100, I guess I'm going to a different one right now, but Warren Buffett could be the same age as you, but if Warren Buffett has billions, you may have hundreds of thousands. Your rule of 100 might be a little bit different.
Oh, yeah. The loss is right. And the loss is going to affect you just a little bit differently than Warren Buffett.
Yeah. I read somewhere one day that Warren Buffett lost $32 billion in 2008, but he wasn't living paycheck to paycheck.
No.
But I saw a lot of people in 2008 that were pretty damn scared about where their portfolios were heading.
Yeah. I mean, if they lost 50% of what took them years and years to earn versus Warren Buffett, who's sitting on billions of dollars, it probably stung him a little bit, but he wasn't really sweating it too much. So
they could be the same age though. So that's where I say it's a recommendation of 100, because it's kind of recommending that you become a little bit safer as time goes on. The other one's the rule of 4%, though, the 4% rule that people say, let's take this. You have $1 million in your account. You can take 4% out of that account, or $40,000, and you should never run out of money. Okay. One thing that's really important to realize is, depending upon the person's age, 1% of underperformance, 1% of excess fees, 1% of poor taxation strategies, those can all impact that anywhere between 12 and 20 years and cut your retirement short.
Yeah. What was the one thing that we used to show about that? The 1% could cut your retirement by 12 years
12
if it's
to 20,
not factored correctly.
Depending on how young the person is when they retire.
Right.
But then the other thing about the rule of 4% is, when people were talking about that was at a time period where the bond market was completely different than what we're seeing today. It was not abnormal to go out and be able to buy a bond that paid 6-7%, maybe even 8%, pay the taxes, net out 4 to 6%, take that off the top, and never touch your principal. Today, we're looking at 10-year treasuries that are just above 1%.
Yeah.
So the environment changes. So if you're sticking with the same old school rule of thumb type of scenarios, you could barely be putting people in a really tough situation that may have a major impact long term.
Right. And looking at inflation and just different fees themselves, there's so many times that we compare someone who has a VA and they come in and they say, oh, I have this guaranteed income. I'm guaranteed this growth, which is true on paper, but they've never taken the time, or the advisor didn't take the time to discuss what are the fees associated with it and how does it affect that growth. All these little numbers that add up here and there can, make or break somebody in the long run of their retirement.
Yeah. It's not a situation where we're here to bash any type of particular investment. It's a matter
everywhere has a place.
Letting the clients understand what the purpose is of those things, though, but also let the client make an educated decision. You mentioned paper, which is my next one. The dreaded,
like dollar bills.
No, the dreaded paper loss.
Oh, it's just a paper loss. We'll bounce back. That one.
I love that one. That one. Actually, I hate that
one.
That
was a little sarcastic.
It irks the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Okay. Coming from someone who had two different grandmothers, I think most of us did. That's a joke.
I'm like, everyone has two grandmas.
That was my joke.
I got it.
Right?
I got it. It's Friday. I'm a little slow.
I had two grandmothers, and I don't tell a story all the time, but my father's mother died in a Medicaid facility.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's mother died at home in bed. My father's mother had a paper loss.
Yeah.
And people always talk about, oh, don't worry, it's a paper loss, da, 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 da. Whereas my mother's mother had 8 children, 5 of them were daughters, and every daughter was a nurse. She kind of birthed her own long-term care policy. The reason why the term paper loss pisses me off is because of the fact that it's a way for someone to rationalize and justify the fact that you got beat more than likely past your own comfort and risk tolerance, and nothing was done to stop it.
Right. And you're the one who's affected and not necessarily them.
Well, and the whole thing is they sit back and say, don't worry about it, Mr. Smith. The money will always come back. Okay. Because that's the normal common thing,
the market
right?
will always come back.
The market goes up, the market goes down, the market stays the same. We know that. I've said the same thing on that. And that's true.
Yeah.
Right. But if your advisor is so damn good to tell you, don't worry, it's going to come back, then I want you to ask. And if you're being the advisor, then be prepared to write down a date as to when that's going to happen. If I'm your client, if I'm your client, you look me in the eye and say, don't worry about it, it's just a paper loss. You haven't lost anything because you haven't sold anything. That is absolute baloney, right? Because I'm going to ask you, tell me when it's going to be back. Tell me when I can use that money to help cover my grandmother's nursing home care, because I'm not going to be able to walk into that nursing home with the quote unquote paper loss and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Nursing Home operator, please hold on to this. Use this to make sure that my grandmother gets the treatment that she respects and deserves, because my advisor told me at some point this paper will be worth something again. We're living in a real world now. And so the whole term paper loss, I understand it from maybe a tax basis,
right?
But when people use that one with all due respect, absolutely pisses me off. And now I have to hit the explicit button on the stupid podcast
wasn't
thing.
Bad.
Is piss a bad?
Piss, I think, is what's the irregular?
It does. It just
pisses.
It absolutely irks the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Because it's in my opinion, it's a white lie, if not even a gigantic lie.
Well, and I mean, there's always going to be losses in the market. That we know that it's not always going to go up. But
part of our job as advisors is to make sure, and I'm talking to everyone that's listening to this podcast, part of our job as advisors is to make sure that the risk associated with that client is the appropriate one.
That's where I was going with it. That if they have these losses, they still have an income. They can pay their bills. They can do these things. And that kind of goes back to the very first one of being diversified.
You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it, because it's such an important thing to be able to have those things dialed in. And when I see advisors that pitch average and they only talk about the good times and they never explain the bad times to clients, and clients go in there with 100% trust in the advisor, and then they end up losing 30%, and that was nowhere near what they were comfortable with, because you never actually talked to them about what the downside was.
Right, what they could.
Who the hell is not going to want upside? Right? Who the hell's not going to want? If you could get them 30%, who's not going to want that?
Who's going to be upset with you about it?
Who's going to be upset? Oh, you didn't give me 30%. You only got me 32, or you didn't give me 30%. You got me 17. No one's ever going to be pissed about that. But if you're ruining that, or taking the chance of potentially ruining someone's retirement because you never explained the downside, that's a problem. And if then you're going to use a stupid term of paper loss to cover up the fact that we didn't do our jobs up front as financial advisors, then shame on everybody. Because that is a problem within our industry, and that's what's broken within our industry. And that's why the government's trying to get involved in our industry to force crap down our throats, because people aren't doing it the right way.
No, because they're being, unfortunately, a lot of financial advice. You're getting quite feisty, my friend. Here. I'm gonna have to throw some water at you.
You need to say something.
Simmer down.
You need to say
Simmer
the
down.
wrong word here pretty soon. You need to say something like instantaneous or something.
I was gonna
like
say,
that.
should we look at our analytics?
Nice.
That's better.
That was pretty good.
No, I lost my train of thought.
But it goes into the final word, which is the F word.
The F word.
And then this is a big one, and it's the term fiduciary, because I really believe that the term fiduciary is such an incredibly misused word. It's an unbelievably misused word. I think that the protection behind the word is misused or misunderstood as a fiduciary.
Maybe misrepresented.
Well, it's a falsified sense of security. Here's the reality. The fiduciary's role and responsibility is to look out for the best interest of the clients. You have a legally bound moral obligation to do what's in the best interest of the client. So cue the investment only advisor. Investment only advisor, they only handle clients that do investments. They believe annuities, life insurance, all those things, they're all terrible. They hate them. I'll use Ken Fisher even as an example. He talks about how he hates it. I'm not calling him out.
No, it's on every single advertisement.
So Ken Fisher sits down and says, I hate annuities. His whole marketing campaign is based upon how he hates annuities. And this kind of goes back into, so my question is, if Ken Fisher is truly a fiduciary, where he has a legally bound moral obligation to do what's in the best interest of the clients, how does Ken do that without understanding all the different aspects of that person's financial situation?
Well, and making a general blanket statement that the investments are correct for every single individual.
Right. I always find it interesting because when I'm in front of people speaking, I always ask, how many of you out there have a pension? And it's a good 45% because we know that half the people are losing them.
Yeah.
And I ask them, do you hate your pension?
Those hands go down real fast. Nobody hates that income coming in on a regular basis.
The only thing I'll get from people is I wish there was more.
Sure.
Right?
Always.
But no one ever says I hate my pension. Every pension on the planet is derived from an annuity. Right. And one person in this industry has made his whole career saying how much he hates that particular strategy. Right. And I understand maybe it's just a disruptive marketing technique, but it's a dangerous technique because if Ken's going to talk to some clients about going from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, is that an investment decision or is that a tax decision?
We know it's both.
It's both.
You have to look at both sides of it.
But if you're not going to look at it, how do you ever make those decisions? Right. And if you don't have the left hand talking to the right hand, you could be in trouble. Are there times and situations where people should be protecting their assets? Yeah, that's where insurance products and things like that can come into play.
Right.
The reality is, and you said it earlier, and I don't know if everyone caught it, but you said there's always a time and place for almost every investment on the planet. It's just picking the right individual to do it. Well, then it's a situation of really sitting down, looking at something from a fully on holistic fiduciary capacity. In my opinion, you need to understand the ramifications of everything.
Of all of them.
I look at it as malpractice to not know what's going on with other people's, even if I'm not managing those portfolios.
You still need to deep dive and look at everything, what's going on within their life.
Yeah, it's imperative that I understand how those things are working together. And if I don't, we can run into some serious issues down the road. And that's where mistakes happen. And that's why the client is sitting in your office right now. The client is sitting in your office right now because they went to work. They started making more money. They got a 401k. They started that 401k. They put money away. 6 months later, their car broke down. They had no money set aside for their car to break down.
Where did they rob it?
They then had to rob their own 401k to be able to cover the cost to be able to fix the car so they could get to work to continue the process. They then get married. They then have a family. They then sit down with their 401k person, and it's a different person than when they signed up for it because it's a revolving door. And that person then slays them a term policy to make sure that if God forbid you pass away, your wife and kids are taken care of. If God forbid you pass away, your husband and kids are taken care of. And you sign hard, you buy this term policy. It's like renting versus owning. It's all the same stuff that we've talked about. And then time continues to go on. And you keep meeting with different people. You have a different 401k person. Maybe you switch companies. Now there's another 401k person. And eventually, maybe you find an advisor that your family recommended to you. And you go in and it's basically a situation where they sit down and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're 44 years old. Let's put 44% of your money in equities. Let's put 56% of your money in bonds. Sign hard. Bottom copy is yours. You do that. You have no idea what the hell you just did, but you left and you said, well, I heard the word bond. I think that's pretty safe.
I heard diversification.
I heard that term diversification. Yeah. I'm good to go. And you continue going about your merry way. None of these things are really huge deals because more than likely you're earning money on a 2-week basis. Every 2 weeks you're getting paid. So you're not really overly stressing about it. Market drops. Someone says paper loss. You really don't care because you're still funding your income. You got your money coming in. You're good to go. You still have your W-2 money coming in. You're feeling pretty groovy. Life is good. But when you get to a point of retirement, all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, I've got all this stuff. I don't know how this account and this account and this account and this account are impacting each other. Are they helping each other? Are they hindering each other? I don't understand what my risk is. If the market drops, can I still continue to pay? Because I'm no longer getting my W-2. The whole thing changes, but the same words are being misused no matter really where people are within the retirement plan cycle.
Right. It's your retirement junk drawer until you actually open it up and say, this is not organized. Oh, I didn't even know I had this. What's going on with this one? I don't even remember paying this bill.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, look, some of the things I said today on this podcast are going to upset some of you guys and gals. I mean, I know you're listening to this and you're like, well, no, there really is a paper loss, or he's not right about that. Look, here's the reality, right? Unless you've lived a situation where you've watched someone have these things happen to them. And really there's three main risks to a client right now. It's the risk of bad advice. It's the risk of one-sided advice, and it's the risk of no advice at all. And the reason why I use those three different types of risk, and I'm very passionate about this.
I can't tell.
Well, it's because my father died at 53 years old, and all three of these risks were realized for my family. Mm-hmm. The risk of bad advice. There's people out there that are bad people. So even if they're called fiduciary, Bernie Madoff, mm-hmm. you can't regulate morality. So Bernie Madoff was a bad dude. Yeah. Just that's the bottom line. He was
still called himself a fiduciary too.
He had the license to call himself a fiduciary, right. But it doesn't mean that he was a good dude. He was a bad dude. In addition, there's people out there that are in this industry that just aren't that good at their job.
Yeah. They might have good intentions and try, but
maybe you've been trained the wrong way. I'm not even going to blame it on you or your intellect. Maybe you've been trained the wrong way. Maybe it's been training where you've only been trained to sell one particular product, one particular strategy, and you just go out there and you walk around the solution looking for a problem and you're just hammering the hell out of it. I get that, right? That's the risk of sometimes having bad advice. The risk of one-sided advice, you've all seen it. You go to a seminar and there's advisors out there that pitch whatever's going to make them the most amount of money at this particular time.
One product,
whether it's a real estate investment trust, annuities,
alternatives,
life insurance,
anything,
whatever they're able to sell, or maybe they're being told to sell from their employer. That's what that seminar is on. You will not see me at a seminar talk about a specific product.
Nope, never.
You will not hear me talk about a specific product. Here's the reality. Everyone in that room more than likely is going to have a different plan that's going to have to be utilized to help them get to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. Right? But the worst one ever is the risk of no advice. And this is what's happening a lot. There's a tremendous amount of people looking for our help right now, but they're sick of the same old thing. By the time that clients enter in the retirement space and they sit down with someone like you or me, you are more than likely the 5th to the 8th advisor that they've tried to find ways to trust and have still run into the same run-of-the-mill baloney of all the terms I just used. And they know it because now they're wise. They know it because now they get it and they see the real life ramifications of mistakes that are made. They've been screwed in the past. Mm-hmm. So they're already in a situation right now where they're sitting back saying, I need to find something different. And they don't know what that is. And I'm here to tell you folks, we know what it is. We've been utilizing the 8 elements of financial control process that I designed years ago for years, and it has completely revolutionized and changed what our clients do with their money, how they structure their money, and the success that we've been able to help them with within their money. And the reality of it is we understand one thing is that they earned it. It's theirs. And my job is just to educate them on what they can do to make that better.
Mm-hmm. And help them implement it and guide them. And I think a lot of people, when they've reached, that 4th or 5th advisor, they become jaded and untrustworthy. So
I'm jaded with the whole thing, and I'm an advisor.
Right.
You can hear me talk about this right now. And I'm not my fun-loving self. It pisses me. It still hurts me. My dad died in 2004. Mm-hmm. It still hurts because it didn't have to be the way it was.
No. And that's what I'm saying. Other people are experiencing this. So by the time that they get to a good advisor, like you guys listening, you have to overcome this untrustworthiness. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to be honest and transparent and educate them. Stop trying to sell them on something.
Correct.
Let them know, look, this is your life. This is what's going on right now. Whether you've done something good, you've done something bad, it can't change. So allow them to be where they are, but give them a guide, be the process, be the guide for them to move forward and feel that now they're in control. They understand they're doing the right thing, and use all the tools available to you. I mean, that's one of the things in this industry is we have so many tools available to us. It's just a matter of you educating yourself, working with the right people so you can use those for your clients and really do the best thing for them.
And that was awesome. We should record that or save it and use that as a marketing, because that's exactly what the truth is. That's what the clients are looking for. That's what they want. And you have that at your fingertips. Yeah. If you don't right now, call us Call us at Motivate. We want to help you out. That's exactly what we want to do. Is I want to create an army of advisors that really want to go out and change the way that retirement planning is done, so that no one, and I'm serious about this, no one ends up like my mom did. Okay. It doesn't have to be that way. And so when we see the risk shifting from that of the employer to the employee,
which we know it has,
it's our job to help these people. And I'm not going to apologize for getting passionate about this, because there's certain people listening to this podcast that may tune us out moving forward, but there's some of you that you know exactly what we're talking about is true.
Yeah. And they felt it or they've experienced it themselves. So they know where this comes from.
Everyone has a story.
Oh yeah.
Everyone has a story, and I look at the incredible increase in GoFundMe accounts, right? All these GoFundMe accounts is because people didn't sit down with someone to take responsibility for their family, and now they're hoping that someone else can help them, right? We see these type of things happen all the time, where it's our job to be out there and help them. Don't ever underestimate the incredible importance that you have in someone's life in allowing them to live the life that they dreamt of, or one that could end up being a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right?
And hopefully you're celebrating in the positivity and the strength and, the honesty that you can bring into someone's life. And I mean, I think the big thing with this industry is money touches every single facet of your life, your family, your job, your health, your home, your future, your kids. I mean, everything can be affected by money, good and bad. So I would hope that advisors strive to be the good in that effect, changing those things for the positive, giving some comfort and some relief.
And I think there's definitely way more advisors like that.
Oh, of course.
Than there are the negative
Most
ones.
definitely.
But I don't think that the training is there to help them experience it as much as they should.
And to get out in front of people and be, hey, I'm here. This is how you find me. This is how I can help you.
And that's how you can help them.
Yep.
Right. That's what Motivate does. So if it's something that people want to get a hold of you on, how do they get a hold of you, Miss Cass?
Give me a shout, guys. We are at 772-247-4488. You can always reach me by email. So it's Cassie, CASSIE at motivatedadvisors.com.
Love it.
That's it.
That's it.
No cuss words today, guys. The big F word was fiduciary. You did say piss. I think that was our most
that was probably one of the cleaner ones we've
pointed
had.
and cleaner. Yes. But we thank everybody for hopping on and being here with us today. If you have any questions, if we can help you, don't hesitate to give us a shout. We would love to be able to jump in.
And if there's something today that was said that you feel passionate and that you want to find ways to change your practice, honestly, just give us a call.
Yep.
It's a situation. I'd love to meet people like you. We have the incredible things that we can do to really help increase and improve people's lives. I'm looking for more people like that we can help out. So
building the army.
Appreciate y'all listening as always. This is Motivate
guys.
You. We'll be here weekly. www.motivatedadvisors.com, www.motivatedinvestments.com. Let's go out there and help people. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Take
great
care
weekend.
now. All right. Bye-bye.